Good morning and welcome to the January 16th, 2025 inaugural board meeting of the Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District. I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered within the territories of the Shishal and Squamish Nations and call the meeting to order at 9:03 a.m. Our first order of business today will be election of the chair. The procedure for election of the chair is set out by the board procedures bylaw. I will call for nominations 3 times. If only one candidate is nominated, that candidate will be declared elected by acclamation. If more than one candidate is nominated, each candidate will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to address the board in favor of their candidacy and in the order the nominations were received. I will then hand out blank ballots, which you currently have at your place right now, on which you will write the name of the candidate of your choice. We will collect and count the ballots and then inform the board if there is a successful candidate. Are there any questions about the process? Would the board members like to know how many votes each candidate receives? And if so, would one of the directors like to make a motion that the results of voting be reported to include the number of votes each candidate receives? Hearing no questions or a motion to report the counted vote, I will now call for nominations for a first time for position of chair for the Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District. Director Gavious.
I would like to nominate Director White.
Director White, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
I will now call for nominations a second time. I will now call for nominations a third time. There being no further nominations, I declare Director White elected by acclamation to the position of chair for the Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District, and I will hand over the meeting to the chair to conduct the election of the vice chair. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, board, for your support. And now we need to elect a vice chair. So, was my camera turned off? Oh, it was on earlier. What happened? I wonder how that turned off. I'm not trusting my computer now. The election of the vice chair will follow the same procedure as the election of the chair. I will call for nominations 3 times. If only one candidate is nominated, that candidate will be declared elected by acclamation. If an election by voting is required, the corporate officer will hand out blank ballots on which you will write the name of the candidate of your choice. Ballots will be collected and counted, and the corporate officer will inform the board if there is a successful candidate. I will call a first time for nominations for the position of vice chair for the Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District. Oh, I see Director Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Director McMahon.
Director McMahon, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
I will call for nominations for a second time. And I will now call for nominations for a third time. There being no further nominations, I declare Director McMahon elected as Vice Chair of the Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District by acclamation.
Congratulations, both of you.
Thank you. And our next item on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. I think it's there. We do have, yeah, that's separate. So there was also a letter in response to one of the other letters, but that's been emailed to everybody. So Director McMahon moves to adopt the agenda, seconded by Director Toth. All those in favor? The motion carries, and I will ask for a motion to adopt all reports and materials in this agenda. Moved by Director McMahon to receive, seconded by Director Gabius. All those in favor? That motion carries. And our first item of business is a delegation from Michelle Stanton, who's Oh, didn't we? We didn't do the minutes. Okay. We've got minutes still to adopt. Yeah, sorry, I was thinking we adopted them with the other materials. I'll receive the minutes. Anyone want to make that motion? Moved by Director Gabius, seconded by Director Toth. All those in favor? Those are the minutes are adopted. And now we have a delegation from Michelle Stanton from Vancouver Coastal Health regarding Seashell Hospital minor equipment. Go ahead, Michelle.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. And thank you very much for inviting me today to do this presentation. So what I had supplied and I believe is attached to your package was a very brief presentation or PowerPoint that reviewed, excuse me, the minor capital equipment that was purchased using the Regional Health District funding for the period of 2023-24. And there was a list of those items that we reconciled, working with our VCH team here, as well as with Tina and Tara, to make sure that we had that reconciled. And so that was put forward just for an information piece on that. If anybody has any questions about those prior purchases that we had, I'd happily answer any questions for those.
No questions for the prior purchases.
Okay. So then moving on to the next piece, it is just in recognition that what we are putting forward for potential minor capital equipment purchases for RHD funding, we do know that the total amount exceeds what funds are available, and we will be seeking other funding sources to make up those gaps. So we do not anticipate that this entire list is what will be purchased with RHD funding. It's just putting forward to give you an idea of what it is that we are looking for equipment-wise for the hospital. And this is by no means the entire list. We also have other equipment that we did not include that does not necessarily meet the category of Regional Health District funding. So we didn't present any of that. It's just really giving you an idea of what there would be. So then looking at what our ask will be, and I'm going to ask if you prefer I go through each item, or if how would you like me to present this? Because I'm happy to go through item by item and answer any questions. I also don't want to take up time that's unnecessary.
I think item by item should be fine.
Okay.
It helps. Oh.
Yep. No, I have no problem with that.
I don't see any concerns otherwise from the board here. Yeah.
Okay. So the first item on the list you'll see will be, it's two items that kind of are go together. It's the Zoll R series and X series defibrillators for a total of 10 units. These are the defibrillators that used in a cardiac code emergency. You're probably all very familiar with defibrillators, sorry. There is a move through all of VCH to move to the Zoll brand. It has some benefits over the current models that we have. And the current models that we have also are coming to end of life, so would need to be replaced regardless. So by VCH going through and all standardizing, that gives a lot of benefits in cost, the power of purchasing, but also for standardization, for training, et cetera. So we are proposing to replace all our defibrillators, as well as adding an extra one for that we identified a unit that should have had a defibrillator on the unit that did not. So adding that. The difference between the R series and X series is the X series are transport defibrillators. They're used when you're having to move a patient from one area to the other, or potentially transporting them to another site. What you'll note on all of these things, and I'm happy to speak to them in detail if you wish, is the unit costs that we've listed, and then the total estimate costs. Sometimes the totals don't add up. We've had this conversation. I've had this conversation with a number of people as to why that is. And really what it comes down to is each company provides the quote that we go by. Every company presents their quote slightly differently. For example, the Zoll company that does these, there is a number of ancillary items that go with the defibrillator. We've listed the 17,594 as the unit cost, but with that, there's a number of pieces of equipment that has to be also purchased to make those function. So then there's that piece that I haven't gone to that detail on this PowerPoint. And then each company also in their quote may include the tax, may not include the tax, but tax has to be added into that final cost. And then many of these companies also charge a freight or transportation cost as well as maybe an installation cost if that is something to, required for that piece of equipment. So if there's any questions between the unit cost and why, if you add it up to the estimate cost, it doesn't seem to match, that is why. But I could happily provide quotes for each of these things that have all those details if people wish to.
That would be
So
too
those
much detail.
But and this
I don't
is
think we
and
need
this
that.
is
That's okay.
yeah, and this is why I didn't put it in the PowerPoint, but I just wanted to speak to it in case there was questions. So that's the defibrillator piece. The next item is a Zeiss Omni Pico microscope. This is a wall-mounted microscope used by ear, nose, and throat physicians. We're hoping to purchase this to put into our ambulatory care unit, one of our exam rooms. This is a request from physicians that want to visit the coast, specialists from Vancouver, who would want to visit the coast to treat patients here as an outpatient rather than people having to go to Vancouver to receive this treatment. So we've already purchased some equipment for them, but this is the final piece of equipment we would need for them to be able to come from Vancouver here as a specialist to provide the service here. So that's that microscope request. The microscope cabinet goes with that. It is a storage cabinet essentially to store all the pieces that are required, the lenses, the equipment that these ear, nose, and throat physicians would require to do the work that they would need to do when seeing the patients here. Then we have 3 line items, all for stretchers, and the reason it's broken down into 3 line items, they are all for different units, and there's some slight difference in pricing because an emergency room stretcher has a different mechanics and requirements than an operating room stretcher, as opposed to one that's used in medical imaging. So the company has slightly different pricing depending on what those attachments or pieces on those stretchers go. These are all replacement stretchers. These are not net new. And these are because our current stretchers, due to wear and tear, are breaking down. Our facilities team try very hard to repair and keep them up to date, but they do eventually need to be replaced. There is a cell washer for the laboratory services. I will admit I am not that familiar with what a cell washer does. I just trust that the director for laboratory services, when she asked for it, is something they definitely need. And if you needed me to get more detail on what that actually does, I'd happily go back and get that from her. Then we have a pharmacy fridge. Again, this is a replacement. So in our pharmacy, there's a requirement for monitored fridges that the temperature is very strictly monitored for vaccines and other medications. And the current fridge is end of life, and so they need to replace that. The next 2 items are for our food services. One is a heat-on-demand induction heater, and the other one is plate mooring hatch. These are both for the food service, as I said, and the information I have from food services is that these are both highly used pieces of equipment used for food services to maintain food temperature during delivery and service. Again, these are replacements, not net new. And then the final item is a pressure mapping device. This is a piece of equipment that's been requested from our occupational therapy team. What it allows is for them to do very detailed mapping of a patient's pressure points when sitting in a wheelchair or a recliner chair or a bed, to make sure that we are not creating pressure sore points on patients, and that we're giving them correct seating, cushioning, that will then make sure that when they're sitting in these chairs, particularly wheelchairs where people are in them for long periods of time, we're not creating points where they might get a pressure sore wound. And that's the finalized list. Any questions on any of those?
Any questions, directors? Well, thanks for that detail. That's very helpful. So I see no other questions, Michelle, and we have a report later from our Chief Financial Officer on the minor capital equipment contribution. So I think that'd be our next step to talk about that. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much for having me, and have a great day.
Thanks.
Bye.
And 8.1, next on the agenda is the Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District 2025 meeting schedule. I think that's self-explanatory from it says from our Chief Financial Officer, interim CAO.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to note there is one amendment at the time of publication. I think we just had a change even for today to 9 o'clock, not a 1 o'clock for today.
Okay.
And also just wanted to bring to your attention the one for April, in which if we have a change to the Finance Committee, however, we would still likely have the RHD that same day, but we might just have to accommodate our auditors. So just noting that one. Thank you.
Okay. Director Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I will move the recommendation on page 14 to adopt as presented, or
And I
as
see
discussed.
Director Gabbia seconding that. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. And on to item 8.2, that this is the minor capital equipment grant funding contribution. And I will look to our CAO, CFO to introduce this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we adopted our provisional budget in October, and since that time, through various meetings with the capital planning group and the presentation that Ms. Stanton presented today, we are recommending and putting forward an amendment to the minor capital for the 2025 budget. And the background on this is that for several years, there were costs that were being carried forward. So we were looking to have a catch up. It accumulated up to 1.3 million as a carry forward amount. And so they've made significant progress on that. And again, it looks like they have a good plan going forward. So we're making a recommendation to put the minor capital equipment to 250,000 for 2025. There is a carry forward remaining from the prior year, so that would bring their total spend for 2025 fiscal, understanding that their fiscal is different than ours. Their year ends March 31st to 483,757. And so, as mentioned, what often happens with minor capital is other sources of funding can be used. And so we haven't had a discussion with the foundation or the auxiliary about cost sharing opportunities with some of those. So, and we can reassess for 2026.
Director McMahon.
Yes, this is a curiosity question, and I appreciate if you don't have the answer. How long have we been providing minor capital funding to the hospital? Does that date all the way back to the beginning of the hospital district, or is that fairly recent?
Go to our staff for that.
As long as I've been here, we've been providing minor capital. It has not increased. It increased a little bit in a midpoint. We are probably providing under 200,000. We've also provided reports about the difference of the Sunshine Coast Hospital District compared to other hospital districts within the Vancouver Coastal Health Region, because some don't provide minor capital. Ours is really unrestricted as well. They provide an update, but if their update changes or their capital amounts, we don't necessarily, as long as it fits within our policy. So yes, we have been providing this for quite a substantive time.
Director Bax.
Yeah, this increase adds $4.56 to my taxation bill, which is less than what I spent on a cup of coffee this morning. So I would like to move the recommendations as they appear on page 16.
Did I see a hand up there? Yeah, Director McMahon is second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? Seeing none opposed, that motion carries. And next we have Section 9, Communications. And this was a second letter sent from the Sunshine Coast Labour Council regarding some concerns they raised that they sent December the 8th. This one was directed only to us, or primarily to us this time, even though these are really Vancouver Coastal Health programming concerns. So I did, with a couple of emails and phone calls, I really urged them to respond this time, and we got a response. It was great. We got a response from VCH, which went out by email to all directors, and it came out just after this agenda was published, I believe. So I'm just hoping you all saw that. Otherwise, I can email it again to anybody who didn't notice that, but it addressed a number of the questions in here. So I think, does anyone have any questions on that or any of the issues brought up here? Okay, we will go to in camera. Is the next item with any materials under it. So we need a motion here. Moved by Director Gabius, seconded by Director Toth, for that the public be excluded from attendance at the meeting in accordance with sections 91K and 92B of the Community Charter. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? I just have to check because one person's not voting. That motion carries, and we're closing the meeting. We are back to the meeting of the Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District, having just had an in-camera session. And I will see if there's any business arising from in-camera. Director McMahon?
Yes, I'd like to move that we set up a joint meeting of the 3 regional hospital districts in Q1. Would that be a reasonable timeline?
So this, just for clarity, before, there's a second, this would be before the meeting that will already happen on an annual basis in March, or?
I wasn't aware that we had an annual joint meeting in March.
I know
we
the one,
haven't-
I know the one 2 years ago was March, and both Jenna and Mark and I, we all couldn't remember when the one last year was, strangely, but
I don't think we did one last year.
there was one. Yeah, there was one last year. I remember it, but it was not many people made it. Nobody remembers it, though.
No, nobody remembers. That's not a good sign. So perhaps the motion would be helpful. And then,
Just to make sure that this actually happens. this
yes,
time. Yeah,
to
yeah,
make
the
sure
one that's
that it
supposed to happen
actually
happens.
happens.
Sure.
And I don't, if it's virtual, that would probably be fine, and it would make the scheduling a lot easier.
Okay. So, and it probably should be that we request it, because there's 3 other bodies here. We can't just make it happen on our own. Have we captured that wording? Yeah. Yeah. I'll just.
Apologies, chairs. I was having some technical difficulties. I had that the regional hospital districts request a meeting for March to discuss a response to Vancouver Coastal Health in regards to the Memorandum of Understanding Amendment.
Do we want to say March or Q1, I think was the original? I'll go to staff on that.
Yeah, right now, the Memorandum of Understanding actually titles the group that the Capital Planning Group request a meeting with Vancouver Coastal Health in March of 2025. And the Capital Planning Group actually includes all of the
Yeah.
RHDs. And so since the Memorandum of Understanding has not been amended, that I think would still stand, so.
That's the one I'm talking about, yeah, so. So that works? Yeah, go ahead.
That the capital planning group, the SCRHD request a meeting with the capital planning group in Q1 and Vancouver Coastal, let me start again. That the SCRHD request a meeting with the capital planning group and VCH in Q1 to discuss the response to Vancouver Coastal Health in regards to the amendment to the MOU.
Okay, and I think there was a second, or seconded by Director Toth, so that works. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. So I think we're ready to adjourn. Moved by Director Toth, seconded by Director Gabius. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. We're adjourned.